Hello and welcome to a brand new Five Heart Podcast. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, some other platform, something
Twitch,
like that.
I think we're live on Twitch. I've never seen.
Is it Twitch? I thought it was Twitter.
Oh, it is Twitter.
Good Lord, John.
It's a team
All right.
something, man. What do you want from me?
Hey, Linda's here. Good evening, Linda. Yes, this is the Five Heart Podcast brought to you by CornNation.com, part of the SB Nation Podcast Network. I'm Greg Mahochko. John Johnston right there. Hello, sir.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm kind of fried.
Oh, that's no good. I heard
Well,
you said... You said earlier, right before we went on, that a male stripper blew up on you and you barely got it done in time to watch basketball.
That's not what I said.
That's what I heard.
Okay, a mail server blew up on me. One of my customers' servers exploded at like 5:30, and I had to fix it. Otherwise, otherwise they don't do business, and I like to keep my customers in business because then they pay me. Oh my God. And then I watched the end of the Nebraska men's basketball game against Ohio State.
Do you want to talk about that now and get it out of the way? Talk about the
let's
success of the basketball programs tonight, and then we'll get into the meat of tonight's show.
You have meat? We're
John.
starting out. We're starting with a theme.
Whew. John.
Okay. You know what? Nebraska picks up a 63-60 win over Ohio State at home. I think there was a lot of good things about this game. Number one, they finished this game out after Derek Walker had fouled out. I don't know how many minutes was left. My brain was still putting the server back together. But, they finished the game out without Derek Walker. Juwan Gary is out injured. They made their free throws at the end. I mean, C.J. Wilcher missed one, and Casey Tominaga had his first miss of the year after Kevin Cougar went on and on and on about him being perfect. So he
now we know who to
takes
blame.
the shit out of him.
Yep.
And, they still finished the game out, and it was, it's a nice win. And they have matched their win total from last season, so they still have a lot of basketball to play. And I think that, I don't know, I guess we'll just wait and see. That's what I've been saying from the beginning. But you beat the teams you're supposed to beat at home, and Ohio State, they're in a slump, so I like beating Ohio State and things. It should make you feel good if you beat the Buckeyes.
I feel good beating the Buckeyes. And that's what I was going to, because this is not the same Ohio State team that had E.J. Liddell, who, went to the draft last spring to the NBA. But it's still Ohio State, and I don't know if you know this. I mean, I know you do, but Todd Wolverton is a big fan of Gene Smith.
He is, apparently.
And
I get it. Gene Smith has done wonders for Ohio State athletics. So,
I'm right there with Fred. Fred says anytime Ohio State loses is a good day.
Yeah.
Cue up the Ice Cube. We can't because, that we'd have to pay licensing fees. But everybody who knows what I'm talking about in your head, just a little bit of this.
Okay.
All right, moving on. What is it about this men's team, though? Is it taking advantage of a good on-the-court matchup? Or because... look, when they played Purdue at home, they went to overtime.
Right.
They go to Purdue. It's not nearly as close.
No.
But they've also dealt with injuries.
Right.
And I say an inconsistent lineup. Is it just a bit of bipolar disorder or what?
Well, I think that. Well, number one, I think that people need to understand that blowouts happen all the time. They happen to all the Big Ten teams. It doesn't matter who they are. Maybe not if you're Purdue all the way at the number, in the top 5 in the country. But blowouts on somebody's home floor, they just games snowball. In the particular, against Purdue, they were missing Juwan Gary, like he's injured, and Sam Greasel was out, and those are two extremely good. Yeah, I mean these are key players. I do think that we saw more of Dawson tonight, and I don't even know who that guy is. Oleg Koyenets is our 7-foot Lithuanian guy. I thought he played some good minutes at Purdue. And, it'd be nice to get another guy into the lineup because our serial killer, Wilhelm Breidenbach, is I think he gets too frustrated on the floor. You can see him commit a foul and he gets frustrated with himself. I think he's played well, but again, he has to keep that mentality in there. So, but there's a lot of basketball to play. So, I don't know. Can they make the I don't think they'll make the NCAA. But this is beating Ohio State, I understand, is like what they call a quad one win, or it's a top win. So, and I think I mentioned it Monday night, Nebraska's NET rating, their schedule is the toughest in the nation.
That's tough.
It is tough. And I just see it on Twitter. Somebody announced Juwan Gary will be out for the rest of the year. Oh. He will have shoulder surgery next week, most likely, which, well, that sucks. But that's part of basketball too. I mean, I think that's why we need to see more players in the lineup. Get Oleg some minutes and see if he's going to contribute. Like I said, Dawson earlier. I think we have some good players, and the key here is this. I know there's probably people out there that look at this and say, well, it's Fred Hoiberg's 4th year. He should have everything established. Well, he doesn't. He tried something for the first 3 years. He tried his philosophy for the first 3 years, and it didn't work. And now he's trying something different, and it appears to be working. Now, the key for him to have success going forward, I assume that he's going to be retained because I don't think we're going to find a better coach than Fred Hoiberg. But is to bring some of his players, start bringing more of his players back. I mean, Derek Walker returning this year was a big key. Keisei Tominaga is fun to watch. He's key free throw shooter. I mean, that guy, what's he, 22 out of 23 for the year, I think, on free throws. But
I'm going to take your word for that one, John.
Back, And then this year he had Sam Greasel, the point guard he's always been missing. So
Sam's one and done, right? I mean, I'm not one and done in the traditional NCAA basketball, like go to Kansas, Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina for 1 year and be done. But this was his final year of eligibility.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
What? This is going to be a tough question. When you look around the Big Ten, most teams have at least one player who is draft bound. Nebraska doesn't have one of those this year, do they?
Well, you kind of look at Walker. I'm not an NBA guy, but I think you look at Walker just because, I don't know, he does some things for a guy that just has moves and stuff that I don't think you see out of a normal, I don't want to say big man because he's really, in a way, not that huge. But he does some things under the basket and has some moves and some skills that I don't know, maybe he'll make it. So I guess I look at that and think, man, my son my rotten son watches the NBA, so I have actually watched more NBA lately than I ever have in my life. But I still, it's kind of like the Major League Baseball thing. I don't follow that either. I am dedicated to my Huskers, Greg. That's it.
Yeah. What about your Packers? Let's not forget about your Packers.
Oh, piss off.
No, I'm not. That was in no way ironic or mean-spirited, but I know you're a Packers fan.
Yeah, I actually rooted for the Vikings and then lost, so maybe it's me. Maybe. On the other hand, the Vikings have not had a year of their existence that didn't disappoint their fans, so.
What about, didn't they win like the first or second Super Bowl?
The Vikings?
Didn't they won an early one?
No.
Have they never won?
They have never won a Super Bowl.
Oh, I was close. They played in them. That's what it was. All right, let's. We got a lot of good questions. We're going to address this one first from Joel. Joel asks, "Did you guys get snow?"
Me? I haven't looked outside. When? This month? This winter?
Beetle B says 3/4 of an inch of snow in Lincoln. John, you know a little bit about what 3/4 of an inch looks like. In southern Illinois, only rain today.
I don't think we got anything.
All right.
Oh my God!
There,
what?
Yeah.
Wade's
Wade.
freaking out on us.
All right. Let's here we go. All right. Wade Farr from YouTube says Fred needs to go, and then in all caps, why do we keep him? Frost went because he couldn't. Not all caps, coach. All caps. Then what is going on with Fred? Well, I think Fred's showing that he can coach.
Well, I think Fred Hoiberg is a good coach who was a good coach before he came to Nebraska and had a proven track record. Here's the thing, Wade. Here's the thing. Number one, we have this problem, I think, in Nebraska where we constantly compare football to basketball, which is an indication that nobody really cares that much about basketball. I don't think they do. I think Nebraska fans would like a program that doesn't embarrass them. But here's the thing about Fred. First of all, you can't compare these programs because you're comparing it's not even apples to oranges. It's like a pristine apple you just picked off the tree, ripe, compared to a completely rotten orange. And that is our basketball program, okay? We are the worst basketball program in the Power 6. It's not the Power 5, it's Power 6. You got to throw the Big East in there. So
would it be realistically? It'd be Division I.
Well, I'm trying to be nice, Todd.
Why?
Maybe
I
don't know.
If you're trying to describe the rotten orange, then you gotta say we're the only Division I team that has never in our history won a tournament, an NCAA men's basketball tournament game.
Yeah.
Now, granted, we've only had like 3 opportunities, but still.
Wade comes back and says Creighton wins is in Nebraska. Still, again, really nothing to do with it. Creighton plays in the Big East, tougher conference right now, but the Big Ten is a meat grinder. Here's why I think we should keep Fred, because I don't think we're ever going to get another coach better than Fred to come to our program. You look at Nebraska's program, and the honest to God truth is you're looking at a coach and saying, could you please be at least mediocre and not embarrass us? That's the kind of coach you want to hire if Fred Hoiberg leaves. People, listen, you have football fans, because I got to make the comparison to football. You guys will point out every once in a while that Nebraska has fired 2 coaches that were 9-3, and who would want to come to Nebraska after we fired coaches with a 9-3 record? Okay, well, we fired Tim Miles, and Tim Miles didn't suck. So if you fire Tim Miles and you're the worst program in all of Division I, who the hell do you think wants to come coach at your school after that? Fred Hoiberg does, because he is like a legacy Husker guy. And I think this year his team is showing improvement. He showed the willingness to change his philosophy so that he can start winning games. And honestly, for me, when people go, I think Wade said, okay, I'll just say this. If you want to critique Fred, you will say it's his 4th year. And what my answer to that would be, this is about the 100th year of suck. I don't know how long our basketball program has existed, but it sucked for decades, for like a century of suck, okay? We had a few brilliant years, a few nice years in there with Danny Nee. We still didn't win an NCAA game. So if Fred Hoiberg needs 4 or 5 more years to get this thing to, okay, maybe that's a little long, but I don't see why we should be in no rush with anybody who's anxious to fire Fred and who wants to compare him to that guy we fired in any football coach we fired, because Joel Tilson says Tim Miles were good, not great. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Tim Miles' teams were good, not great. But at this point, I mean, if the basketball program can be good, I think we'd all be very happy with that.
Fred says that he's always viewed Nebraska men's basketball as a nice to have. If they do well, great. If not, he'll live. And I think that's probably the mentality of most Nebraska fans. All right, so
I want us to have a good men's basketball program because I live around people in Minnesota. I work with people who are Penn State. I work with a Penn State guy, a Wisconsin guy. I got to work with all these frickin' Big Ten people. So, for me, none of them care about baseball. There is not anybody in the Big Ten I've ever met that gives a single shit about baseball, which I think is unfortunate because I think college baseball is really fun. Yeah, it's even funner because we have the College World Series in Omaha, and if you go, it's a blast. But when you look at, I think people in Nebraska, I wonder if that's a difference there that they. Okay, move on.
Vince comes in with a hot take. I know a thing or two about hot takes.
Yeah,
he says maybe Trev will just get rid of basketball like he did with football at UNO. And I'll follow that up with Wade's because Wade's is in the same vein. If we can't get a great coach, then get rid of basketball. And I don't know, polo, even water polo. You're not. You're not getting rid of men's basketball. Men's basketball, along with men's football, and Nebraska has the luxury of volleyball. They actually make money.
Yeah.
Even Nebraska men's basketball still makes money.
A lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I think that the Big Ten doesn't give two shits that Wisconsin doesn't have a baseball team, but they would care a lot if Nebraska didn't have a men's basketball team because it makes the conference just shit tons of money.
Lance with a good one. We want a good basketball player. We do. I'm assuming since we're talking basketball, B-ball means basketball. Lance, maybe a little clarification there because John also did mention baseball. Is the university, I guess we get the clarification in the next sentence, is the university committed to men's basketball? I think they do.
Well,
I think they're committed.
Here's the thing with that. For years, I got to be careful how I phrase this. I don't want to stick my foot down somebody else's throat.
Thank you, Lance, for the clarification.
Is there were a lot of people that for a very long time felt like Nebraska men's basketball, there was no commitment to men's basketball, but it was there in name only. One of the indications were half shows that they used to, now that they have PBA, this is pre-PBA of what I'm talking about. Now that they have PBA, I think that they have a lot of stuff to bring people into the stadium, court, whatever, arena. But I think previous to that, there probably was kind of like, yeah, we want a good basketball program, but the athletic department probably didn't have the same thrust.
Oh God. Are you laughing at your own use of the word thrust, or are you excited about what Fred said?
What did Fred say?
Fred said, "Don't sugarcoat it, John. Tell us how you really feel. Quit being so guarded."
I think that there was a lot of indications previous maybe to PBA that people just, a lot of the basketball success stuff, we want to have a program that's good, was, my God, I'm missing the phrase, lip service. They just said it and they didn't really mean it and wasn't really there. And then after certain people have left the athletic department, I'm not talking about ADs necessarily, that we now are trying to do a lot better in basketball. And I think when Hoiberg was hired, everybody got that. I think we were bringing in a good coach that was going to bring in a lot of good players. And, the first 3 years, what he tried didn't work. And I think that you look at that, you can go back and look at coaches previous to him. Tim Miles really struggled to get his program together and try to get things going in the right direction. I just think Nebraska basketball is it's not, we have this attitude. One of the things I don't get too is this. We have this attitude about Nebraska football that we're special and we're unique and there's no place like Nebraska. But for some fucking reason, when it comes to men's basketball, we just think we can go hire a coach. He's going to come in here and be a good coach. That there isn't some puzzle that they have to break open here. that there's some encryption that nobody's ever decrypted, that some new guy's just going to figure out. And that isn't how it works. Just because of that whole, I mean, if we got the whole NCAA tournament thing off our back, then maybe things would be different, but they're not. And until we solve that, decrypt that freaking mystical loss thing, then things are going to just be tough for Nebraska basketball. Man, I didn't mean to turn this into a basketball thing, but I would just I guess I look at men's basketball. I tried to play basketball in high school and I was terrible. I mean, I'm not coordinated at all, but for us to have even a decent men's basketball program, I think would be fun. And I'll be brutally honest. One of the reasons why is because I cover coordination. I've been doing this 16 years. August will be the 17th year.
Has it been that long?
It's fun.
Coordination can drive?
Yeah. Oh my God, I never
coordination,
thought of it that way.
Coordination is almost as old as Rotten Sun.
Sam Greasel tweets, big thank you to all the Husker Nation that showed out tonight, even with the weather. We appreciate you. All of you get home safe. See, that's what's neat about Twitter is you get that personal touch in there.
Twitter's a cult. Fred says, it's in the song, John. It's in the song. There is no place like Nebraska. So.
Well, there's certainly no place like Nebraska when it comes to basketball. Men's basketball.
All right. Linda asked if you were talking about PBA or PBR. Because you were talking about PBA. Pinnacle Bank Arena, Pabst Blue Ribbon.
A PBA. PBA Arena.
Right, of course. We all know. Brian has two. We'll sandwich it another one in there. Brian says, I'm happy with Husker basketball. If they're competitive and play hard, they fill the house for home games. Doubt they fill Pinnacle for water polo. I saw water polo being mentioned in the...
Yeah, I played water polo at the University
Did you
of
now?
Nebraska. Yes, I did.
Brian comes in...
I played it was intramural, or it was intramural, but we played water polo.
I'll tell you what, you have to have great core work to... all right. Brian also says he doesn't believe that we'll lift the NCAA curse until Lil Red is sacrificed at midcourt at Pinnacle. And Matt Hansen says, deflate Lil Red and hire Solich for a halftime show during basketball games and take care of both curses.
Why do people hate Lil Red? I just want there's 31 people on here. You got you, Greg. Why do people hate Lil Red?
Do I hate Lil Red?
Why do people hate Lil Red? In the comments, why do people hate Lil Red? What the hell is the deal with you?
All right. I want to poke the bear a little bit. You're never supposed to poke the bear. I'm going to poke the bear. Why do we need two mascots? Like, look at all the great professional...
good God, I am tired. Auburn is the Tigers, and they have an eagle, and they scream War Eagle. Alabama is the Crimson Tide, and they have an elephant. Do I need to keep going? The Texas
We're
A&M
the Huskers,
Aggies,
so we have Herbie.
Yeah, and Little Red.
Here's the thing. Our as a fan base, we say GBR, go Big Red. I feel like saying go Lil Red is offering less. Lil Red is less than. When you have a Husker, when you have a mascot and you want to add a second one, it's either going to be greater than or less than. Lil Red is less than Herbie Husker. All the great teams only have
You're
one.
You're trying to make this shit up in your head, aren't you?
I'm not. All the great teams have one mascot. From Mr. Met, I being a St. Louis area native, I'm a little partial to Fredbird, but you have the Fanatic we saw. I mean, you have so many iconic mascots, and they don't have a little buddy. They don't have a little inflatable. Let's get this cheerleader or whatever, an extra scully and get them a little. It's unnecessary. It is unnecessary. It needs.
We just said, Greg, there is no place like Nebraska, which means we're unique, and that we have two mascots, a big red and a little red.
But we don't have a big red.
Well, that's what people are saying. We're big red, but not little red.
I don't know.
We can have two mascots. We could have 8 mascots if we wanted to.
All right, Patrick.
I advocate that the University of Nebraska get their genetics people involved and recreate mastodons so that we can have a live mastodon for a mascot. And we'd have 3.
Patrick Earhart says we stole Go Big Red from Oklahoma. Don't bother us with useless trivia, Patrick. Starting to think that this is John's real bedroom, as his wife kicked him out from emoting too much at night when he was talking to her, and it was distracting. John, do you do too much bedroom emoting?
What does that mean?
What does that mean? I don't know.
You know what? Last night I do fight wars in my sleep, because last night I woke up and all my blankets were just shredded all over the place. Literally, I don't know what I was doing. So yeah, I do something, which is why I have my own bedroom. This is my own bedroom, Patrick. I do sleep here. This is my own small room that I have for myself.
All right, so we're going to jump back to a few. Earlier, when you were on a rant, I cracked open this delicious beer. And Linda noticed I was appreciating the bouquet of the beverage. This is from Pig Mines Brewing Company, and it is called the Bitch Slap. Or, because it only says slap across it, my son calls it my slap beer. I got this at Total Wine, where I built my own 6-pack. I really had no idea what to expect from this. It's 5.8 ABV. It is an American red ale with natural vanilla. And Pig Mines Brewing is from Machesney Park, Illinois. Don't know where that is. I'm guessing it's up north. This is a very nice beer. I'm enjoying it thoroughly. So, if you're partial to the vanilla flavor, I think you'll really enjoy Bitch Slap from Pig Mines Brewing.
Can we go back to the beginning?
No, not yet.
Well,
because Fred said that I looked more confused about my beer than our former HC at the concept of sound coaching and personal responsibility, and I felt that needed to be addressed as well. It's a good beer. Okay, now where do you want to go? You said back to the beginning?
Well, Linda, right at the beginning, Monday night, Linda, who's a regular, brought up that Whitney Lowenstein was leaving the volleyball program, and she did announce that she would be leaving the volleyball program, apparently because to take time for herself to apparently get past the dealing with the death of her father. Her father died, I think, 2 years ago. I don't remember. That's part of the being fried from working on a server just before the show. But, I guess the only thing I'll say about that, I saw somebody on Twitter say, well, why now? And I can tell you this, from my own personal life, there's a distinct difference between the moment that somebody dies this close to you and the moment that you realize that they're gone. And it is a very distinct difference. And if with all of the stuff that's required for her to be a part of the Nebraska volleyball team and all the work that athletes have to put in to do that, I'm sure that she didn't have much time to actually think about her own life. So, I hope that she does take that time, and I hope that she, sorts through it and figures it out. And by the way, that whole, realize the person that you love so much is gone thing, that's not something you can force. I think that's something that you just, it occurs. And it hits you like a brick in the forehead.
Think about this too. I've lost loved ones as well. Not someone that close. Like as far as I know, both my parents are still probably still awake, honestly. But we just had the holidays, right? And the holiday season can be very trying on people who are dealing with grief. So, you know what? She hasn't announced that she's going to Texas, so we'll take about it. She's stepping away. She's not. I mean, I guess yes, she's leaving the program, but she's also leaving the sport, and that's got to be tough on her as well. So, Fred says it hits you later. He's echoing your sentiments. His parents lost. He lost his parents 3 years ago. Sorry, certainly for your loss, Fred. Settling in more now than in the moment, and I think that's part. And again, I'm not experiencing what Fred has experienced, but there's so much going on at that time. There's funeral arrangements, and there's just the mess. And in my line of work, I deal with grief all the time. But I get to be the guy bringing the insurance checks. But everybody's timeline is different for this stuff. So, we wish her well.
Did you actually have topics?
Yes, John. I did. But before we do, we have one more pinned message.
Okay.
And Matt was asking while we were talking about abandoning the men's basketball program. Matt asked, is Nebraska getting a hockey team? I know we've talked about this in the past, but it's never going to stop me from bringing it up. Look, in a world of Title IX, where you get men's hockey, you can easily add women's hockey and keep the scales balanced, right? No. Because there's no grassroots base. Nebraska's not a hotbed for hockey. It's just not. I'm sure there's some club teams around Omaha, maybe on the eastern side of the river into Iowa. Kansas City maybe has some youth programs. I know St. Louis is building up its youth program. But you talk about a 500-mile radius that's not already been picked clean by Minnesota or Wisconsin or the Dakotas. I just don't see it. And it's a shame. I continue to follow and support the Nebraska Cornhusker Club hockey team, and I encourage everybody to do the same. But I just don't see Nebraska adding varsity level hockey anytime soon. John, any additional thoughts?
Yes. No.
Okay. Well, let's move on, shall we?
Uh-huh.
In your Monday night show, John and Todd's Monday Night Therapy, the name Walter Rouse got brought up.
Yes.
The offensive lineman from Stanford who this time last week maybe it was Thursday, was saying he's coming to Nebraska. We talked about it, Todd and I. We said glowing things. I can't tell you how many times I put this little goodie up here. Get your pipeline jerky. Get it? This is the honey barbecue pork jerky. I finished off the peppercorn beef jerky today. Get that. It's an NIL collaborative. Helps Nebraska, goes directly to supporting offensive linemen. And I said, probably going to need to buy a lot of that to pay for Walter Rouse. Used a picture of him at Stanford as the featured photo for the 5 Heart podcast last week on the article. And that day, he says 100% committed to Oklahoma.
Yep.
And you were melancholy, dare I say. You said, well, it's a big loss. It's a big loss. And Todd said, you can't lose what you never had.
He did.
He did. Twice. I listened. I know. So it got me thinking, and this was Monday night. It was the same night that Micah Parsons was having a ball-out playoff game for the Dallas Cowboys against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFL playoffs. And I got thinking, well, there's somebody that we really went after and didn't get. Micah Parsons, and
Yeah.
how could that defense have looked better with him on it, for his college playing days? And I bemoaned as such in the Slack chat room. Thank you, Linda. No, he was not a fan of the bitch slap beer. But I bemoaned that, and someone made the. Do you remember Mike Riley having the Friday Night Lights little mini camp show out type of events?
Yeah.
Micah Parsons was there, and I can't remember exactly who, if it was Aaron, if it was Brian or whomever from Coronation was there watching. He said he wasn't just the best linebacker, he was the best receiver that night. He was the best in a defensive back capability. He was the best athlete there, and Nebraska couldn't get him. And he ended up going to Penn State. We know his story now. I think Nebraska only saw him, fortunately, once in his college career. And then he went on, and he's one of the elite defensive players in the NFL. But again, it got me thinking, big swings and misses that Nebraska has had in recruiting. And I got to think the name that comes up a lot because he played in the Super Bowl last year. He's in the playoffs now. Is Joe Burrow, and Scott. Well, I'm not supposed to say his name. Previous head coach said we have a quarterback. Not interested. He went to LSU. Joe Burrow did. Played for Coach O. Won a national championship. Smoked a cigar in the locker room. Got drafted. Is an AFC champion. And the other one would be Max Duggan from Western Iowa there, Council-Tucky, who went to TCU, played in the national championship game, perhaps was robbed of a Heisman. That's a story and an argument for another show. But again, didn't land at Nebraska. And I got to thinking, quarterbacks are in, you could say, would have been great to have Joe Burrow, but as we have lamented now for a couple of years, we didn't have any protection for a Joe Burrow, and a Micah Parsons, I think on the defensive side, and this is where I'd really like some engagement from you, John, as I've been talking alone for 5 minutes now. On the defensive side, I think there's not to say that the guy next to you is not important, but you're less reliant on inside linebacker if you're an outside linebacker rather than being a quarterback and having to rely on everybody doing their jobs and doing it well.
You're waiting for something from me, weren't you? Who would Micah Parsons have played under Nebraska? Which coach?
It would have started with Riley, would it not?
Right.
And then it would have ended up with.
And I think what we saw from all of those coaches that their defensive coordinators were universally shit. They really were. I mean, they've just bluntly I think what we really learned when Eric Chenander was fired was that he was fucking terrible. I mean, literally in 2 games, a week and a half to 2 weeks. Bill Bush had the defense at least playing defense, and our defense really under Eric Chenander just worried about long balls going over their head, and they really didn't play very good defense. So I think people recognize that Joe Burrow would have been wasted at Nebraska. Not necessarily wasted, but he wouldn't have had Jamar Chase to throw the ball to. And who was it? Justin Jefferson was his other receiver. I mean, he had some good people around him that made him who he was too. But we don't recognize that on the defense. I mean, Micah Parsons, I remember him going, and I thought, damn, that was one guy we really wanted to get. But, that's par for the course. We could go through this missing people stuff, Greg, and just cause ourselves pain for hours.
No, I think
it's the same thing on the defensive side of the ball. The defense wouldn't have been there, and the problem with defense, especially under who was it, Bob Diaco, that son of a bitch.
At one point, it was, yes, not the entire time.
Yeah, but the problem on defense is that when people don't play their positions or when people can't make plays, is you as a defender start trying to make up for those, and then you get sucked out of position, and you get sucked into being watching the backfield during a play action or things like that, and it just, it ends up being the same problem.
I love this comment by Roger on YouTube. Joe Burrow didn't like runses. And look, there's Go ahead.
I saw something interesting about Burrow. I mean, I like watching him. He is fun to watch. I think if Cincinnati wins one more playoff game, Joe Burrow will have 5 playoffs wins. Right?
That's 5 more than I've got, John.
That is as many as Cincinnati has had. Somebody tweeted that. I don't know if that's true, but I know Cincinnati's been really bad at football for a very long time.
That would definitely have to be a, like maybe within the last 20 years type of thing, because I think we all know my Steelers ran the North for a long time.
Oh.
Joe Burrow didn't like runses.
If
that's, yeah, hey, claim them in good years and in bad. They didn't make the playoffs this year, so I still say my. And everybody in the comments is saying kind of the same thing. Colin says he would have never developed if he came to Nebraska. Speaking of Burrow, first of all, I agree. Because that's where all of our lacking came from. I mean, you get quality guys, but it seems like very early on they plateau. And so the hope is, with the new coaching staff, the new regime, if you will, that there will actually be some development. Linda asks, she's coming and swinging. Speaking of the past, what happened to our former temporary coach? Did he go to court? I have no idea.
No
John, have
idea.
you followed that at all?
Not have heard anything out of it. Somebody mentioned, let's see, Fred Sacco brings up Riley quarterback Tristan Old Man River. Is it Gebbia or Gebbia?
It doesn't matter.
Went to Ohio State. He did transfer there as I think a grad transfer. How many years does that dude have? Geez. He was at Nebraska. He went to Oregon State?
Oregon State.
It was. And then he's going to Ohio State. My understanding about Tristan Gebbia is that he wants to get into coaching. So he is not necessarily going to Ohio State to try to win a starting position. He is going to Ohio State to try to become part of their grad assistant program. And I think that, that's a guy that has a plan. So I don't think that's really about getting a lot of playing time with all the quarterbacks they have there. It's setting yourself up for a good future.
We always talk about the coaching tree, right? The coaching tree that Matt Rule's predecessor sat under and lived under for all those years. Tristan Gebbia's coaching tree involves Mike Riley, so I think at best he's looking to be about 500.
Wow. Shots fired.
I don't care. There you go. Roger has an update on the Mickey Joseph situation. There's apparently a court date for later this month. And Linda says, I believe in regards to coaching, that is where the big money's at. That's certainly been our experience. We've paid a lot of failed coaches a lot of money. So maybe if Tristan Gebbia is lucky enough, he'll be able to be on a Nebraska coaching staff and fail and walk away with a 8-figure payday.
Yeah.
Could you imagine? I know we've talked about this in the past, but gosh darn it, just chaps my ass. Being so bad at your job that you're paid $15 million to go away.
Yeah. It's pretty. You know what? When you bring this up, maybe I should have just left that server not running tonight. I don't think they would do that. John, you didn't the server. Here's $10,000. You know what I mean? I'm sure that's not how it works.
We got into the wrong industry, John. I think we've learned that. We've discussed that enough. Fred, all right, so this is a Season 1 South Park reference that I'm surprised I recall. Fred says, I've only seen Rule at the
using,
podium.
I didn't fall for this like Monday night.
Is it
What's
true
that
he
man,
has
bear, pig thing? What was that thing called?
Patrick Duffy as a leg? I can't remember. I can't. All I know is Uncle Jim and Jimbo and Ned is it's coming right for us, and then you say that, you shout, then you can shoot at anything in the wild, allegedly. So, I like Roger's comment here as far as the coaching tree at Iowa is a bonsai tree. Very, very decorative. Needs a lot of care. Probably some diapers at this point. Shallow roots. Very shallow. I don't know.
I'm not picking up things very well.
That's all right. That's all right. So I had a really nice write-up that I can't read right now because it's on a different tab that I don't have open. But whenever I talk about near misses, I always go back.
I'll go look at it.
No, it's fine. No, this is going back to the ones they got away, right? The losses.
Yeah.
I always go back, and don't laugh at me, because you got to go back over a decade. Bubba Starling.
Yep.
And how he leveraged Nebraska to get a higher signing bonus or something like that from the Royals or whatever it was. And I just don't necessarily think it's worked out terribly well for him.
Yeah, but you know what? He got his signing bonus and he got his, you know what I mean? So even if they didn't have a long career, I mean, you still get a fair amount of money for doing that kind of stuff, and it gets you a boost on, I don't know, early retirement.
He got, so, all right, let's go. I don't want to dwell. I know it sounds like I'm dwelling.
You are dwelling. You are.
I am.
You're dwelling.
I feel bad, kind of. He was gonna play.
You do not.
What? I don't feel bad. No, I don't. No. I'm holding on. This is gonna be one I take with me to the grave. This grudge. He was one of the top QB prospects in the nation, and he was gonna play allegedly both football and baseball at Nebraska. He was also on the all-state basketball team at Kansas, which is, I guess, saying something. I don't know. Drafted the 5th overall pick in the 2011 draft. Spent most of his time. I mean, he played in Nebraska. I guess you could say didn't play for the university, but he played for the Omaha Storm Chasers. And finally, in 2019, got the call up. That's right. And he played in 56 games. And he started in 2020 with the Royals as well. And then he went back, by the end of 2020, was back in the minors and announced his retirement in 2021. Was it worth it, Bubba? You could have been one of the greats. You could have been a contender. You could have helped turn things around at Nebraska, but no, you had to get greedy. You had to chase money.
I mean,
and that's what happened.
If you're gonna do this, you got to bring up Harrison Beck.
I don't want to.
Okay, we could. I have another thing that I was going to bring up, and I don't know if anybody saw anything about this. Should I go ahead with it?
Yes. Always go ahead with everything, John.
I don't have Rashawn. Oh shit! I kept the R. I didn't get the guy's name down. Okay. Anyway, Florida right now is missing a 4-star quarterback because apparently a $13 million nil deal fell through, according to his family. Now, I look at that and I want to just say, this sounds like a bunch of bullshit to me. Because I don't know what backup quarterbacks get, and I think you could go across the NFL, and I'm sure they make really good money, but a $13 million nil deal for an untested freshman, a recruit, that's never stepped foot on a college football field, either you'd have to be a complete idiot. I guess I want to just say that this sounds like agent talking. And these guys don't have agents. This is their families, so their families acting as agents. I guess all these nil deals are private. Nobody knows how much they really are. It'd be nice if somebody could hack their way into things and get some. But $13 million nil deal fell through. Yeah, probably because it was way too much money and didn't exist in the first place, talking about things you can't lose if you don't have in the first place. But does this not sound like just complete bullshit to everybody else?
This is the first I'm hearing about it, and I agree. When you've got an asking price that high for an untested, unproven commodity, and I think when money starts changing hands like this, this is going to sound insensitive, probably, but then I think you're allowed to use words like commodity because you're paying for goods and or services, and in this case, the university or supporters, boosters of that university are paying for the service, which is you excelling at a game that I love. We're not even talking about practice. Anyway,
Florida quarterback recruit Jaden Rashada requested a release from his national letter of intent Tuesday night after a $13 million name, image, and likeness deal fell through, a person familiar with the situation said. It's not anybody from the NIL Collective in Florida, whatever they're doing there. It's not anybody from Florida's staff, which, keep in mind, this isn't through the school, so you probably wouldn't hear from the staff. But it just sounds like, I don't know. It sounds like, what do they call that? You manifest something by talking it into existence?
You will it into existence.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Whether or not he gets released from his signing day, contract or whatever, not contract, but his, whatever phrase you used, you think anybody else is going to want to put up with that? You think, even at Nebraska, there's no NIL collective at Nebraska to be like, $13 million, here you go. NIL's too young for that type of, I think, dollar amount to be thrown around. God, Linda, I think Linda likes my beer. Sounds like the kid needs a good bitch slap. I agree. And this vanilla bitch slap is delicious. Thanks,
James
Linda.
Marshall says NIL has to be name, image, likeness has to be more well regulated. Well, yeah, it does, but who's going to regulate that? Nobody is going to. That's the thing about it. Unless Congress gets involved, and I don't think anybody wants that because they fuck up everything they touch. I think that it's going to be. I think it's just. I mean, we always talk about the free market and capitalism and stuff like that in America, and I think that sooner or later this is going to become something where people who are contributing to NILs and NIL collectives will, they'll settle themselves out and they'll have maybe not colluded quarterback prices, but they'll have more of an idea of what actually people are paying.
I think Joel hits the ball out of the ballpark saying NIL is a disaster waiting to happen. I don't disagree. I think it's a ticking time bomb, and that's why it needs some form of regulation. But again, in a free market,
yeah,
what are you going to do?
NIL comes back, or James comes. Go back to that.
Sorry.
There you go.
You can tell I'm driving this one, folks.
Yeah.
Are you going to read what he said?
James Marshall says conferences can get together. That's true, but they won't. I mean, if you look at the SEC, they're going to be way more. They're always going to be crazier than everybody else. I mean, when you get into a fight with somebody, when you get into a fight with another person, one of the ways that you win that fight is by just demonstrating to them that you are way more insane than they are, and they are no match for you, no matter what the size difference between you is. So.
And I agree. I don't see the conferences coming together because there's still so much competition, And if and even if there was some type of regulation, the SEC has had bagmen for 70 years, so they're just still they're going to circumvent the rules as they have all for forever. And Roger brings up a good point. You can't regulate the option.
I was wondering today.
Oh, God.
I was wondering today. I probably shouldn't say this out loud either, but when I'm burned out, I tend to, my mouth runs just like the vodka I used to have. Anyway, I was thinking.
I miss those days.
I was thinking that if I loaded up a Tor client on one of my machines, one of my 4 laptops sitting in front of me, and start searching on the dark web if I could find some evidence of hacked, nil contracts that people have hacked in and stolen.
Can I ask a question? I feel like this is an important question that myself and other non-tech savvy people want to know.
Yeah.
Is the dark web real?
Well, yes.
I mean, I keep hearing about it, but I've never where do you go? Where's the little door? What URL do I type in? Is it darkweb.com?
We're not gonna go into that part. But yes,
inquiring minds want to know, John.
Well, there are just places out there that you can go on the internet that's restricted to things. Let's just say that you can buy viruses. And I'm not talking COVID. You can buy virus packages that then you can develop, customize into your own, and pay people to knock down sites. You can pay people to take over sites. You can pay people to attack whatever organizations. Pay a daily rate. Pay whatever you want.
Wow.
All this stuff. Everything that you ever thought of that was horrible in the world, you could probably pay for on the internet. That's just the reality of it.
I really hope that I keep my nose clean and I don't piss off anybody. I mean, it just sounds horrible.
Yeah.
All right. If you're a dark web user,
this is a whole different topic that we just should move away, segue into something else with.
I feel like Richard says it's onion time. Does that mean all the layers of the dark web?
Probably.
Okay. And Joel says you can.
I'll tell you what. If anybody wants to learn more about this, a very good book, a very, very, very good book that will inform you a lot about what law enforcement has to go through and about dealing with hacking and cracking, stuff like that. If you want to read the book Crack 99, it is excellent at explaining a lot of this stuff.
Wade wants to know how much it costs, John. How much would you charge to destroy a website?
I'm not the guy that does this. First of all, there's laws in this. There are laws in this country that are very strict and nasty laws that you do not do that in this country. Because we believe in free market capitalism. We have a lot of money, and when you go to other countries, I have to explain this part to my customers a lot. When you go to other countries, you realize that when they hack into stuff and they drain your bank account, to them it's really not theft. They're just contributing to their economy. Like I said, there's a whole thing that we should just go maybe
Let's
questions
move away.
About questions about other things.
Well, Linda had a great question that I'm not entirely sure how to interpret. It on the surface seems easy enough. Here's the question. Who's the craziest athlete you know? Now, I'm guessing that that's know personally and have had a conversation with, but... John, is that your interpretation?
Well, no, I brought up Harrison Beck earlier.
Okay. But
he's a little out there. I don't know if anybody. You remember when Ryan Tweedy, who did the podcast?
I do.
Come on.
The big red Cobcast.
That he got the autographed can of SpaghettiOs.
Yep, I remember.
Harrison Beck.
I missed that show. By the way, look, you can still find old episodes on the podcast service of your choosing. I highly recommend going back and listening to some of those interviews. They've got great interviews with some Husker legends. Grant Wistrom was a fixture on there several times. Charlie McBride was on the show a number of times. Go back and look. You may not always want to go back and listen to like the episodes after a game, but you find some of those off-season episodes where you get some of these interviews. They're really good interviews. Tweety's great. Pat's great. We miss those guys tremendously and hope they know if they're listening, they always have an open invitation to come join us on the Five Heart anytime. I haven't spoke with those guys in a while, so hope they're doing well.
Hey, speaking of crazy, in 10 days I jump in a frozen lake.
Well, let's talk about that because not only are you jumping in a frozen lake, but you're doing it for a good cause, John. And where can people... let's talk about what are you doing besides like a polar plunge? We know that much.
I am doing the polar plunge. Where? Here in Minnesota. Where? I don't know. Let me ask this: Minnesota, land of 10,000 lakes. Which one? It's I want to say it's Lake Nokomis, but I'm not 100% sure. Here's the thing: do you remember when you were going to come up here?
Yeah, I did come up there.
I told you that you were like 2 months ahead of time. You were like, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to do this and this. And I said, no, that's not how this works. The way that my life works is planning comes into view when things get about 1 week to 10 days away. And then I start recognizing that there's something going to happen and I start preparing for it. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Okay. If I didn't have to fix the server tonight, I was going to have graphics and things, URLs that people could click on. I will put this in the show notes where there is a contribution page for me.
Please do. I will contribute, and I know many of our great viewers will also. Look, if everybody watching at this very second donates $1, that's $36.
It is $36.
And I will match that $36 with 36 of my own because 36 is the greatest 2-digit number of all time. And what's the cause that you're doing it for, John?
Minnesota Special Olympics.
Perfect.
That's where the money
tremendous
goes.
cause.
The cause I'm doing it for is because, honestly, the guy that's in charge of it, I died him on his floor and he saved my life. And he's been asking me to do this for a few years. And COVID took it out for a couple years, and I just decided, this is a challenge. It's kind of like when you were talking about should you go bowling with your nephew, I think it was?
Yep.
Okay, we all were like, you should go do that. Well, I thought at that point, I don't really, I don't socialize. This is a challenge for me because it is kind of scary, but at the same time, it's something I need to do. I need to get out and I need to challenge myself. You get old, you get comfortable, and that's the shittiest thing about getting old.
Follow up to that, since you weren't around last week, I didn't go bowling with my nephew. He was needed on the farm. And then we thought about delaying it a day, and then I did something to my knee that Sunday morning and couldn't walk. Couldn't put any weight on my knee. Damnedest thing. I went to bed that Sunday night, woke up Monday, and it was back to its ornery self. It almost happened again this past Sunday. So I'm going to see an orthopedic surgeon this coming Monday morning. So I'm excited about that. He's going to tell me all the fun things that are wrong with my knee. Let's get back to the craziest athlete we know. Linda's doing a little humble bragging. She says that her son's girlfriend is competing in a 777 later this month, and she goes on to thankfully tell us what a 777 is. 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents. That's not the crazy I thought she was talking about. Like I thought, cuckoo. But I appreciate the clarification. That's it. Is that not madness?
Possible. That doesn't sound even possible.
I'm sure it's, okay, let's look at the 7 continents, right? There's North America, South America, Antarctica, Africa, Europe, Asia, Australia. And I think if you map it out that way, you can probably, depending on how quick you run a marathon, and look, I'm sure this is private flights. Linda would know, not me. I'm just speculating. Private flights maybe to get you from, A to B on all your destinations. But if you map it out right, they don't say where in Africa this marathon is. It could be, a stone's throw from Antarctica. I don't know. I'm just saying. That sounds exhausting.
It sounds nuts. It does. It sounds it sounds like it's not even possible.
As the guy who was just complaining about my knee, I say with a polite no thank you. And we wish her well. Theo
asks, what is your opinion of Nebraska's nil operation? And one of the things that I was going to have ready for tonight, and this has been a busy week, but one of the things that I wanted to find out was how many. Nebraska has 3 or 4 different nil operatives. They have, what is it? 1890. They have the Big Red Collective run by Chris Brown. They have a third one that I couldn't find the name of. And then they have like Pipeline Jerky. But I wanted to go around and ask some of my other Big Ten counterparts, what they knew about their nil collectives and what they were doing. So, and I didn't get that done for tonight. We have gotten a lot of nil stuff that has been one constant along with the Husker hockey that we get questions about. So I promise that for the future I will do more research into this and get some answers. Oh, Greg's freezing out. I can't hear anything you're saying. So,
how far back?
At least a minute. It's still pretty choppy. No, I asked the room. Oh, and Greg went away. Look at that. My God, it's me myself. Let's talk about Greg. I think he drinks too much. What do you guys think? Oh, okay. Let's see. Somebody else had a question. Colin J. Thoughts on the transfer from Georgia, MJ Southern or MJ Sherman? Well, he's a nice pickup, and I mean, if we're going to run a 3-5-5, certainly he's going to be one of the guys that's going to, maybe provide some good athleticism in that scheme and then in that setup. So. Fred Sacco says Greg is still more coherent than Bob Diaco. That whole thing was a disaster at Nebraska for him. James Marshall comes in and says, would you rather have a 7-5 team next year that loses all 5 games? Greg's chatting at me. Would you rather have a 7-5 team next year that loses all 5 games by a combined 15 points or a 9-3 team that wins big and gets destroyed in their 3 losses? My God, that's a good question. Let's come back in here, Greg.
Hi.
That is a, you know what? Here's the thing. I'm getting exhausted. My brains are starting to hurt. Let's take James' question here and think about it. And probably make it the last thing we do.
All right, but we have to also. Linda gave us an update on the travel for the 777.
Oh, okay. You want to put that up?
We'll back. Yeah, she said her son's girlfriend starts in Cape Town, flies to Antarctica, then to Perth, then Dubai, Madrid, Brazil, Miami. 55-hour flight time in the 777. That's bonkers.
I suppose you could recover on a plane fairly well. I mean, still, I hope to God she's in her 20s, because.
I mean,
Okay.
Like Linda's only 43.
I'm going to go with James, to answer James' question, I'm going to go with having a 7-5 team next year that loses all 5 by a combined 15 points. Because here's the thing. If that happens, we'll all have shades of the former coach that was the one-score loss guy. And we'll all talk about it. Oh, we were never that close, and it'll bring back a lot of PTSD memories, bad memories. But I think it will be indicative that they were competitive in every game in his first year. I think that would be phenomenal. Where, I guess a 9-3 team that loses all their games by big losses brings back shades of Bo Pelini and Frank Solich both. So, no matter where you're going with that, it's going to bring back PTSD issues.
I was going to say that either scenario, which Fred would take. Fred says I'd take either of James' scenarios at this point. Not picky, just a winning record and build. And I think that either scenario draws comparisons to past head coaches, and you hit the nail on the head. If it's 9-3, but are blown out in the 3 losses, that's Bo Pelini's MO. And if it's 7-5, but they're 1-score losses, we know exactly who that sounds like. There are 23 of them or something like that. There are too many losses, and they were all close, it seems. So either way, they're all. The only way Matt Rule doesn't draw a comparison to a coach of the last 20 years is if he goes undefeated, and then he'll draw comparisons to Tom Osborne. I mean, I feel like there's no, because we're all insane, there's going to be comparisons drawn to somebody. If he goes 6-6, well, you know who else is a 500 coach? Mike Riley. I mean, there's no hope for the guy to not have a comparison drawn to a past head coach. All he can do is go out there, put the best team on the field that he sees, rack up wins, get back to a bowl game, start rebuilding this program.
Okay, Linda comes back and says her daughter is 40 years old and her 13-year-old is also running, and Linda is 73. Is she having a midlife crisis? I thought that was limited to men.
Well, I mean, what would you rather? Well, maybe this isn't a fair question. Would you rather buy a Ferrari or run the 777, John?
You know what? If I could even come close to running one marathon, I'd be happy to do it, because it would mean that I'm in decent shape to go do that. And you got to keep moving. You do. If you don't want to get old before your time, you got to keep moving. You got to keep moving. You got to not get comfortable, which is one reason why I'm going to go jump in a frozen lake.
I'm excited for that. I can't wait.
I texted this to my family, my brothers and sisters, and they came back with how much money they would have to pay for me not to do it. And they said, well, if we just meet your goal, will you not do this? And my response was, do you realize how much of a losing proposition this is setting you up for? Because after that, you're going to have to pay me to not jump out of a plane.
Oh, that'd be so much fun. That's one thing I would love to do.
Really?
All right, I would love to.
Maybe we should go do it in Lincoln.
Well, here's the thing. I looked into it about a year ago. This is a true story. I looked into it about a year ago. I turned 40 last summer. I was like, I'd like to do it before I'm 40. And they really want you to be around X, pounds. And they're like, but for X plus 30 pounds, you can do it with this added harness type of thing. Well, I'm X plus 30 plus about, at that time I was about another 35. So my hope was to lose the 35 so I could at least go in a tandem. That didn't happen. About 5 years back, I told my wife, when I turned 36, I want to go skydiving. She says, well, you can't do that. You have a son, we have a family. That's not possible. A couple years ago, I brought it up again. She said, well, just make sure your life insurance is paid up.
Hey, welcome to marriage. Welcome to
Yeah.
marriage after your kids start growing up. There you go. James Marshall says, I'm a bit concerned for you, John. I appreciate that. I do. But
We're all concerned for you, John.
Okay. It'll be okay.
We're gonna hammer out some of these pinned messages, and then we're gonna call it a night. We've been at this for 75 minutes. Owen says, "Did the dark web take over the Five Heart Show for a brief moment?" It's entirely possible. It is entirely possible. That was I don't know what happened. Not a fan of being kicked out of my own show. So I'm happy to be back, and I appreciate all of you. We didn't get to this. Colin J says, thoughts on the transfer from Georgia, MJ Sherman, the outside linebacker.
I talked about that when you fell off.
Okay, good. All right. Well, then I'll delete that one. Excited. More depth. Good thing. John, can you still hear me, by the way? Oh, there he is.
Yeah, I was looking. I saw where Matt Hansen says, I still miss your dog, John, and I don't know where she is. She came in here for a brief moment. She was going to jump on the bed. Then apparently something happened, and she has the fear of missing out much worse than any human and ran off. So
she's a good dog. Colin J asked earlier, John, Jon, by the way, but that's all right, Colin.
it's okay.
It's important. How excited are you for another year of watching Bryce Benhart starting at tackle? I know you're his biggest fan. I'm going to answer this, and I'm also going to allow you to answer this, John. I'm excited to see what Matt Rule, Satterfield, and a re-energized Coach Raiola can do for Bryce Benhart, who was one of the top, let's not forget, wasn't he the highest-rated football player coming out of Minnesota when he was a senior?
Like something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's not an idiot. I just feel like he's been in idiot hands.
Well,
and so I'm excited.
That's a good description.
Let's see what he can do with some competent coaches around him. You know.
I think my answer is I am excited for the chance. Think about it. If Bryce Benhart can become a decent tackle next year, that'll be one hell of a turnaround. Because, I have bitched at that guy, bitched about him so much, and I know other people have too. And I think maybe, just in the big scheme of things, God has a plan for all of us, and God's plan was to have Walter Rouse go to Oklahoma so Bryce Benhart could have his chance to redeem himself and become a damn good tackle for the University of Nebraska. I mean, maybe that's in the future. I would love to see it. I'm sure Mr. Benhart would love to see that too. So
it would be the 2023 Bryce Benhart redemption tour.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we're looking for out of all of this. This new coaching regime, the new coaches that are coming in, to see what they can do with some of these guys that have decided to stay. Because in the big of the scheme of things, I mean, did some players leave? Yeah, they left. We got back some of them back from the transfer portal, but by and large, mostly the core of this team stayed intact. Given all that they've been through, if I was a 19, 20-year-old kid and I could go play football somewhere else and I've just been through the shit show that was Nebraska football the last few years, why in the fuck would I ever stay there? That coach would have to really come to me and say, here's what we're going to do. Or even not me individually, but as a team maybe or something. They would have to show you something that says, this is the reason why you'd want to stay. So that all of that stuff is kind of exciting when you put it in those terms.
Linda's telling me to lay off the bitch slaps. By the way, it's empty now. This was a full 16 ounces. It's delicious. It's really good.
Are you being? Is this a paid sponsorship?
No, I wish.
What the hell?
I don't know if I said this on this or one of my other podcasts. My New Year's resolution was to drink more beer, and when I say it like that, it's it sounds like quantity, but I don't drink. It will take me 2 weeks to go through 6, 7, 8 beers because I'm not getting a case of Busch Light, Busch Latte. And pounding them, I'm selective. I'm a connoisseur. Thank you. And you know, I like to try new beers, and this is a new beer, Bitch Slap Beer, American Red Ale with natural vanilla, and it's very good. So that's when I say drink more beers, I'm expanding my horizons. Let's move on. All right, so we had two comments about the spring game. And we'll start here with Joel says, will Rule have touch football for the spring game? Like, we don't mention his name, like Voldemort. I'm going to say no.
No.
I'm just going to, I don't have a whole lot of reasoning behind it. I'm just going to say no. And then Fred answers the question in the comments, which is great. I love this comment. Rule spring game will slay giants and consume Englishmen with fire from its arse.
Okay. Well, that's a spring game I want to see.
That'd be fun. That would be right up there with
nobody, you know, you can't play football by doing no tackle, so you will see tackling at the spring game. They don't have to announce that. It's sad that they probably will actually announce that, but if you can't tackle, you're going to suck. That's it.
If we saw a spring game that would slay giants and consume Englishmen with fire from its arse, that would be the greatest spring game since the touchdown run by Jack Hoffman.
Yeah, and then you know what would happen after that? All them other schools out there would start having giants and consume Englishmen with fire from their asses. And the Englishmen would probably get really pissed off about this in very short thrift.
They'll be like, send in the Scots. All right, so Joel says, will Matt Davidson be successful as the Huskers NIL coordinator?
Let's say
it is just for the one, right? It's the 1890
yeah.
collective, right? It's not the whole.
Save that and bring it back.
Okay, Joel, bring it back.
Yeah, that's a whole topic.
That's a whole topic, Joel.
Yeah.
Here's an odd one. I just saw Columbia, Missouri. Georgia almost learned the danger of Columbia, Missouri last year. Nebraska has lived through that lesson in the past. That's for sure. And then a little update or added info from Brian. Both Benhart and Corcoran were 4-star recruits. So,
Right.
All right, Joel, your duty for next week. Anyway, sorry. Your job for next week is to. I can't help myself sometimes. I do it just to see your reaction on your face, John. That's the highlight of my life is making you chuckle. Joel, bring that comment back about to the Matt Davison and the NIL next week. But buddy, we've been at this for 83 minutes, and I know you're tired.
Really, oh, wow, yeah.
I have to go fold laundry. You want to trade? No. You want to fold my laundry and I'll go to bed?
No. Nope.
That's no fun. All right, well, we thank all of you from the very beginning. We logged on, and we had 14 viewers already, and we grew from there, and we thank each and every one of you bringing the great questions, the fantastic comments, the criticism about my drinking, Linda. I don't have a problem. I just, I just like beer. That's okay. But this show, and you know what? I got to say this. You'll never guess, real quick, who reached out to me this week, John, and asked about the show.
Tom Osborne.
No, he doesn't have my phone number. Haas Reuter reached out,
okay.
and checked in on him. He got a new job. I think we talked about that in the fourth quarter of last year. So he's actually working in a big boy job. I'm super happy for him. He's still getting settled, but he said that probably after the spring game he'd be around, and he'd when there's actually something to talk about with less speculation and more evidence, he'd be more than happy to come around and visit after that. So
pansy.
No, I'm not going to do that. He's been through a lot.
Okay.
But for to all of you out there watching or listening to the podcast on Friday, for my good friend and my founder, not my founder, he's not, that's weird, for the founder and fearless leader of CornNation.com, for John Dam Johnston, I'm Greg Mahochko. This is the 5 Heart Podcast, where we remind you each and every week that 5 Heart is all the heart you need. John?
Go Big Red.